I'm Kai Amrine.
I'm Cassie McMurtry.
And I'm Natalie Pearson.
And our question is, should the mining of metals and coal be regulated in Africa?
Okay. Down in southern Africa, there lies a mining village on the outskirts of Johannesburg. This village is small, impoverished, and has no access to clean water. This is because the river nearby is orange and full of radioactive chemicals that make it unsafe to even approach the river. These radioactive chemicals have been leaking out of the abandoned mine shaft nearby. This mine shaft did not take proper precautions while mining, and now the inhabitants of this village are paying for it. The river in the Tudor Shaft village is one of many negative impacts of non-regulated mining. Coal and metal mines that are not regulated can seriously pollute the rivers nearby. The waste from the mine dumps leak into the rivers, making the water unsafe. And as a result, communities are denied access to simple, essential resources, such as clean water. The Carolina community suffers from acid mine water contamination, or leakages from mines contaminating the water resources around their area, depriving about 17,000 community residents of regular water supply since the middle of January 2012. If mines like these had had proper regulations while mining, it is likely that this community would have access to the most basic resource almost every living organism on this planet needs: clean water.
Soil degradation is also caused by pollution from mines, and this problem is followed by contamination and depletion. Soil degradation is the overall depletion and degradation of nutrients and composition of the soil, which is needed for agriculture to support the growing African population. Also, depletion of non-renewable resources mined can never be fixed once they're done, and therefore should be used more efficiently. Mining, specifically of coal, can lead to dangers such as landslides, combustions and explosions, and cracks. For these reasons, the mining of coal and metals should not only be regulated because the soil degradation would limit their food supply, but it would also pose dangers to any humans, wildlife, or ecosystems anywhere near the mines. Because of the harmful hazardous conditions in which they work, many miners suffer from diseases, including respiratory diseases from respirable dust. Short-term exposure can lead to irritation of the upper respiratory tract. Long-term exposure can lead to silicosis, tuberculosis, and many others. Whether it's laboring in the mines, living near the mines, or contributing to the mines in any other way, diseases from harmful minerals are everywhere. Cyanide and mercury, well known for their harmful effects, have a high concentration around gold mines especially, that use these for extraction purposes. And in one study, it shows that 50% of the urine samples from people not occupationally exposed to the mines had levels exceeding the guidelines. And just about every form of mining comes with these harmful occupational diseases, as well as birth defects from contamination.
So, according to Suzanne Keene, a mining talent expert, miners in South Africa make around 6,000 Rand a month, which is roughly $730 US. That, compared to other minimum wages in developing countries, fares pretty well. And South Africa's current average minimum wage, taken from all sectors of collective bargaining, of 2,340 Rand is significantly lower at only 53 cents in US currency, which means that miners in South Africa are making substantially more than the average South African minimum wage. However, compared to the wages in developing countries, their wage would be 6 times less than those countries such as the United States and Canada. So comparatively, African miners do not have ideal wages, especially for the type of working conditions that they have and the health problems that can be caused from mining.
In this image, children are mining cobalt in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Many children give up their education so they can work in the mines and help support their families. They are paid less, yet they are still expected to work just as hard as adult workers. They often suffer injuries from heavy labor and from using tools designed for adults, and they begin this difficult work as young as 12 years old. In the tunnels and mine shafts, they risk death from explosions, rockfall, and tunnel collapse. They breathe air filled with dust and sometimes toxic gases. These poor innocent children deserve better than this. They should be in school like us, learning about the world that lies outside their villages and the mines, developing their intelligence and their creativity, but they can't. They can't have any of these simple things in life that we take for granted, if there are no laws or regulations in the mines of Africa.
So, due to the high value of the marketable materials found in mining, some people in the mining industry are able to make a great amount of money. South Africa's total reserves remain some of the world's most valuable, with an estimated worth of 20.3 trillion rand, which is about 2.5 trillion US dollars. The mining industries in Africa are thriving in the economy, which is largely due to their political connections that allow them to manipulate their way into being a strong force in the African economy. Without the mining of marketable resources, the economy of Africa would be a true disaster, as a great number of Africans are unemployed and many are working but are still in poverty. For example, Sub-Saharan Africa has the highest rate of working poverty at 48.5%.
A huge and vitally important topic of discussion in African countries, especially where mining is involved, is corruption. Many companies have been said to bribe government officials in order to mine, smuggle, or sell precious minerals illegally. The Corruption Perceptions Index from Transparency International shows that many of the most corrupt countries in the world, especially the Congo and Somalia, to be located in Africa. Illegal mining operations often have even more harmful work environments, employ children, and potentially could control a whole village with a monopoly on goods like food. Also, because of the political and economic standings of individuals, they're able to keep huge percentages of the profit from these valuable mines without paying the workers very much at all.
So the demand for resources that are found in Africa dictate the exportation of the mine goods in Africa. The largest market for these materials is China, who is the #1 trading partner for most of the African countries. China, for example, has bid for access to 10 million tons of copper and 2 million tons of cobalt in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or the DRC. In exchange for $6 billion package of infrastructure investments, including mine improvements, which means that the mining business is very crucial to China. This shows just how important it is on a larger scale.
Please excuse this interruption.
Some of the cobalt found in the DRC is mined using child labor. It is then shipped to China, where it is put together along with other material in a factory in which all of the workers are underpaid. The product is later shipped to America and sold as what we call a smartphone.
Come on down to the library to finish up the part 2 of the Smarter Balance assessment. Thank you.
Okay. Non-regulated mining destroys wildlife habitat. Mining can negatively impact land for up to 4.6 miles square. Furthermore, there is concern in the downsizing of protected habitat to make room for these mines, also known as downgrazing, downsizing, and degazettement of protected areas, or PADD. In the Republic of Guinea, for example, the Mount Nimmo Biosphere Reserve, a World Heritage Site, was downsized by 1,550 ha, or hectacre, to allow for iron ore prospecting. Further, some 44% of Africa's major metals are inside or within 10 kilometers of a protected area. Because of this non-regulated mining, precious habitat that could mean the difference between the survival or extinction of a vital endangered species would be no more. Not only is habitat destroyed for even being near a mine, but it's also harmed due to industrial needs, such as railroad tracks or roads to transport the material needed. The extraction of these materials is posing a substantial negative impact on our world's protected areas. If mining is not regulated properly, or even stopped altogether, there would be a tremendous loss of biodiversity and protected habitat.
So one thing that we came up with as a solution would be to raise awareness. While it is difficult for us to influence the governments of African countries from where we are, there is still something that we can do right here in the United States. Since many of the technological devices we use have materials made from child labor in these mines in Africa, we can help limit it by sharing how, because these devices contain such labored over materials, we need to monitor how much we consume. We can also protest, or boycott major smartphone companies to influence the companies to monitor the materials that are put in their products to make sure that they are not mined using child labor. Another way we can raise awareness is by writing to a local government official to bring these issues to light and to require technology companies to monitor the source of their materials.
Another possible solution is to strive to use alternate sources of energy, such as renewable energy. Wind, geothermal, hydroelectric, biomass, and solar energy sources are not only better for the environment, but also would grow to replace coal and fossil fuels. If the demand for mine energy sources declines, then so will the need for mining. The fewer mines there are, the easier it will be to set regulations so that these mines will be safer and have less of an impact on the environment.
There's obvious need to develop safe guidelines for land use, water and air pollution protection, and preventing the discharge of hazardous waste into the environment. Laws that are not in place but should be are, first, preventing harmful discharges of pollutants into the environment, evaluating environmental effects and developing a rehabilitation plan for exhausted mines, safety guidelines surrounding child labor, and setting exposure limits on hazardous materials for all miners. America has all of these regulations and more to protect its workers and its environment. This graph shows the decreasing fatality rates over the years that we would like to see and expect to see from Africa with more regulations. Although it may be unrealistic to implement all these regulations, as it may be difficult with the amount of corruption, inadequate technology and resources, and the negative effects on the economy that it could cause, but for the future of these countries, they should all be considered and eventually adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. Cassie, describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of group discussion.
Well, originally we had expected ethics to be our main topic of discussion, our strongest point, but as we read each other's essays and got to know each other's research a little better, we decided that the environmental effects ended up being one of our strongest points, and we highlighted that a little more.
Thank you. Natalie, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem your group identifies?
I think while I was reading their essays, I realized there was a lot more than just environmental impact in mining. There was child labor, corruption, the economy suffered, and this gave me a different outlook on the whole research and the project, and changed my perspective.
Thank you. And Kai, having finished your project, what, if anything, do you consider to be a gap in your team's research that, if addressed, would make you feel more confident about your conclusion?
One gap that we think that if we included would make it more solidified would be conflict, because that is one thing that we excluded from this, and if we elaborated more on it, it would have made a stronger argument.
Thank you.